So today's a good day. I'm going to use the 671 to start the 471, and then I'm going to go buy a 6V92. So it's all Detroit's. It's all Detroit's today. No knocking on Cummins or anything, but it's Detroit time. Dirty old 4-cylinder. I still have not fixed the brakes on it, but I did do some other stuff like mounting a deck and servicing the air system as well as all the oils. This thing has an oil bath air filter and it's been done. Let this thing warm up for 15 minutes. Old girl. You're supposed to split the shift, but I don't do that, so here we are. Come on, you can do it. To run this thing once in a while, keep everything lubricated. I don't run it when it's cold, but when it's warm I'll start it up and drive it around a bit. It even drifts a little bit in the snow. All right, it takes a lot to rattle me. But when you're covered in mice, that's enough. I got, I don't know, half a kilometer from home and all of a sudden there's mice on my legs and mice coming out of the windows and mice coming out of the seat behind me. Yeah, it actually spooked me pretty damn good. So we're headed up north. Me and some cripple in a 1-ton Ford with a Cummins in it. Yeah, we're headed up there to go look at a couple of dirty old Detroit diesels. I have never seen so many engines in one place in my entire life. And this is one shed. So here we are headed home. As you can see, that big, dirty, 2,000-pound slug is weighing me down a bit. I don't know what that thing weighs, but with the 6-speed transmission I bought it with, it's probably at least 2,500 pounds, and the truck is sacked out. But I also found out my block heater doesn't work, which is terrific, because my truck was a nightmare to start this morning. Dirty old unplugged-in P-pump. But yeah, I bought me a dirty 6V92 and Peg got himself a dirty 271. The question is, what do we do with them? Or what can we not do with them? So this is a dry crank. I don't plan on starting it, but these Detroit's mechanical engines, if there's any fuel left in the system, it will start. The fuel is completely disconnected, but there still could be fuel somewhere in it. So I'm ready on the shutoff valve. This is a dry crank, theoretically. And then I've got a shutoff for the air in case it decides to run away, which, once again, there's not much fuel in it, but you'd be surprised how long one of these will run on whatever fuel's left in the system. There's a bolt pail here. I'll throw the return hose in there in case fuel comes out and go right into that pail of bolts and keep them from rusting. I don't know which position is which. I suspect this is all the way off. This should shut the fuel off to the engine, but I won't know that for sure until I crank it. I hope my starter is the right starter. It's off a 671, but let's find out what this thing does. Well, that's disappointing. Come on. Well, my starter still has problems. But it looks like my starter actually mates up with the flywheel properly. So it will work. It's just going to make this more challenging now. How do I want to do this without dying? That's the real challenge. Because I can manually short it out and spin it. The battery could be dead too. Nope. Nope, that's all working. So if I jump this here, I should be able to get a wrench in there. Oh, it did not like that. I'm going to need probably a better battery, I would think. It's possible this battery is very weak. That was a possibility too. So here we are, round 2. Now I've got 2 batteries hooked up, still in parallel, 12 volts. This starter is 12 volts, I think. So I've been running it on the rat rod on the 671 and it worked just fine. So I'm not wired to 24 volts. That'll be a down the road thing if it does happen at all. But let's see what it does. Oh, no connection. Alright. Oh yeah, well we've got rotation now. Oh yeah, well, it's going to want to start from the looks of things. Still not enough juice. Yeah, this thing probably needs a 24 volt starter. Although I'm not sure how much more torque it takes a 671 to start than a 6V92. It shouldn't be that much more. This should have lower compression than a natural. I don't know, it might be tight from sitting. I rotated it a full rotation by hand, and it was a little snug, but I mean it wasn't tight. It's snug because I'm turning it with a crescent wrench, but after wiring it to 24 volt, it's all set up now again. I'm even less comfortable than I was before. Now it's even sketchier than it was before. And of course I'm using too small a battery cable, but let's try this again. Hopefully this thing doesn't run away, because now I'm nervous. runaway. Luckily, I was right on the fuel stop. We'll try that again. That was kind of sketchy. But from the sounds of the oil, we were making oil pressure because there's oil running. So we're running in the right direction, which is something important anyway. Oh, that would be me welding. Well, we know it wants to run. I just don't know how fast it wants to run. I'm not going to touch the shutoff this time. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to leave it there. I can't run everything. Shutoff is not working. I should have been able to trip this and shut the fuel off, but it didn't work. So, and if I walked away, the reason it was trying to rev up when we first started it was because the weight, and with no tension, spring tension against this throttle, when it's idling, it actually wants to ramp up on its own. I had to hold it or it would rev up on its own. So it's a good thing I had that shutoff block there, or I would have had to basically leave it unattended long enough to grab something like this to stuff over the turbo to shut it off. These are good things to know now that it's been test run. But I mean, now that we know it'll start, and I know that I can shut it off, not safely shut it off, but I can shut it off. Let's try and start it one more time, just to see that it just starts properly again. And I'm going to try this fuel shut off one more time, but to my knowledge, the fuel shut off typically works fuel on, fuel off, and it did nothing. And I could see that when I was pushing it, it was actually actuating the fuel racks, so it's probably just out of adjustment. But let's try that one more time. Oh, that's welding again. Well, that time it shut off. It might be out of fuel. I still have not connected any fuel line to it. And it is returning a little bit of fuel, so it's probably out of fuel. But for the purposes of test running it, that was a great victory. We know that it runs now, and I didn't get to see the actual oil pressure, but I can tell from the oil leaking out of every orifice on this thing that it was making oil pressure. So it wasn't running backwards, because contrary to popular belief, Everybody thinks that when one of these things run backwards, it'll set the air filter on fire. That's not the case. If it's running backwards, it still runs through the exhaust. It still sucks through the intake. It just has no oil pressure. The engine doesn't care what direction it runs for the most part, but it will not make oil pressure if the oil pump's turning the wrong way. Well, that was sketchy and interesting. The camera doesn't pick up just how thick it is in here, but the diesel fumes are real. It is thick in here. So I got this thing home, unloaded. The only thing left to do is cover everything up and get it ready for storage, because it's not going in anything yet. I have to figure out what it's going in. And of course there's still adjustments and little repairs to do. I still have to put this water piping on, but it's right there. Anyway, for the most part it's done for now. And yeah, and it looks pretty damn sharp. Would like to point out that it has the fuel squeezer emblems on it. This thing is anything but a fuel squeezer. So I managed to weld some wheels on this cart, and I put a sheet of plywood there to store parts. So now this thing has a home. I wasn't sure if I'd be able to roll it around. It's 2,000 pounds. But yes, indeed, I can roll it around. It's a lot of work, but I can roll it around by hand. The 7.3 IDI turbo next to it looks like a toy engine. And, you know, it really casts doubts on some of my plans, because the 7.3 IDI has to be almost shoehorned to fit in the Ford. Like in an OBS Ford, they don't fit well. They're a bit of a thing. So that thing definitely won't fit. Yeah, it's not a question that it's not going to fit well. It's not going to fit well. Not sure what the plan is. I actually considered putting that thing on a run stand and bringing it to car shows and revving the shit out of it. But no, this one's gonna. I think I've got the concrete truck I got from Old Peg, but I think the frame's no good. And I've got a plow truck that me and Peg went to go get that had a bad engine, a 3208 Cat, but it's a short frame single axle. So I might end up building some kind of a project truck with this thing for that, because well, I don't know what else I'm going to do with it. I wanted to put it in a pickup, but finding a front end that's going to support this thing, it's 2,000 pounds, just the engine. So no extra stuff, no running gear, no transmission. I'd have a hell of a time finding an engine, or a front axle that could support that thing. But I'm not giving up yet. I'm just brainstorming ideas.